Sorry I can't be there right now. I'm sure Byron and Donovan doing a great job of getting you guys and everything you need to know. Just wanted to run through my picks real quick as I'm walking through the airport here in Austin. Should come as no surprise, as the hat says. I got Chiefs over the Bills. I think they're going to cover 2. I like 38-31 Chiefs. I think it's going to be a air it out. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes just show us why they're the future. And before that, I think the weather gets to old Tom Brady. I mean, I know he's the GOAT, but 43 years old, 20 degrees in Lambeau. Give me Aaron Rodgers. He's the MVP this year for a reason. So I'll make sure to catch up with you guys next week.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Borderfield Live, the most important sports show on the internet. My name is Byron, your host, and Donovan, Dan Campbell, pro or anti kneecaps?
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be a fan of those. He's got a clear message.
Okay, so I'm not normally, I hate talking coaches before they even started, calling games or anything like that. It's not helpful. But, dude, that press conference, I don't know how you can be a Lions fan, look at that press conference and be like, oh, yeah, things are going to be okay.
No, I felt like, I'm cheering for him to do a good job, but I felt very embarrassed. And I'm not even a fan of the team. But, I don't think that message is going to get across to the players. I mean, we kind of had a similar situation with Matt Patricia, but, the Lions are obviously – they're going to have to compete with Green Bay again. Minnesota is only getting better. Same with Chicago. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's the right type of motivation this team needs now, and I'm sure a lot of them had a good laugh, especially after seeing that yesterday.
I mean, you say message. What message was he trying to get across?
I don't know how he's going, his coaching style, maybe? That's his coaching style. I don't know.
Yeah, there has to be a lot of don't get me wrong, it's good for the NFL because anytime that guy gets on the podium, we now know he is a powder keg ready to blow with stupidity.
Yeah, I'm curious to see him on the sideline on a game. Like, if he disagrees with a call or some things, I want to see him, what he does, what his reactions are. We obviously saw that story with Matt Patricia that came out not getting along with the players. You can't tell. Obviously, he seems like a guy that you can get along with. And if the players are just as motivated as him, maybe they got something. But that was a little extra.
And I mean, so the Lions are heading for a hard reset right now.
Yeah.
Right. They're getting ready. They're going to trade away Matt Stafford. They're gonna rebuild. And this is the guy you brought in for that.
Certainly more. Not only noticeable options, but obviously maybe there'll be better options. I didn't know too much about this guy before. I keep track of most of the coordinators and stuff like that, but I didn't really know much about him. But it's a heavy burden to take on being a head coach. So maybe he's ready, maybe he's not.
And I keep going back to maybe he's just a placeholder for right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah. They only have this offseason. Maybe they didn't find the immediate answer yet, but they obviously had to come up with something after what happened with Patricia. So they need to find a way to move forward. It's obviously been hard for them to do that in past, 20 years now, longer. But, yeah, like you said, this may not be the long-term answer, but they needed something for now.
Of course, there have been a ton of hires across the NFL. Big name, Urban Meyer goes to Jacksonville for, what is it, hundreds of millions of dollars coaching down there?
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, couple 4 to 6 years or something like that.
What does sure, Jacksonville's making a gamble picking him up. What does Urban Meyer see in Jacksonville?
Obviously, we have to take, I guess, obviously he knows college football more than most people, him and Nick Saban. So obviously he knows how good Trevor Lawrence is. Obviously he wants that. Obviously that kind of speaks to the measures of how impressive Trevor Lawrence is if he's willing to do this. I don't think he does this for, Justin Fields to the Jets, or he does this even maybe the only other quarterback situation he could go to is Deshaun Watson, but we don't know where that's heading. So, yeah, that also should be interesting. Jacksonville, obviously, they have some young talent. I like their running back, Robinson. But like we said, we've seen Nick Saban, try to coach in the NFL compared to college football, and it didn't go so well. It's a whole different animal, obviously, and I think Urban Meyer is aware of that. I think he's a particular guy. He wouldn't take the job if he didn't, see so many positive sides to it. So I think maybe he's seeing something that maybe we don't see right now, and maybe it's going to be a great hire for them. He's certainly a big name, and it's going to attract more stories to the Jaguars than you would usually have in a season.
Yeah, and they also have, who's that receiver? DJ Moore, I
Yes.
think, who he's very talented, and I think him and Trevor Lawrence could tear stuff up. So maybe Jacksonville could be something with Urban Meyer, but like you said, that is a whole different creature. And it seems every time that a big name coach from the college comes down to the NFL, they get absolutely destroyed. Like you said, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer's our most recent, but there was the Oregon head coach who came to the NFL. I forget his name.
Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly every time got embarrassed. Like, sure, Urban Meyer is the name in college sports that isn't Nick Saban.
Yep.
But hundreds of millions of dollars for 6 years seems like a massive gamble.
Yeah, this is the Jags. Like I said, I think this is the Jags trying to make themselves, relevant again. Like, they're not too far out from being in an AFC championship game a few years back. I think with getting Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer, that's going to create a lot of media attention, and they're creating that early. So they obviously have a plan moving forward.
Right. But when it comes to like coaching moves that I liked, the Jets bringing in Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator out of the 49ers. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know what he can do with the Jets defense that is but I like him a lot. And I like the direction the AFC East is going now that the dynasty's gone.
Yeah, the Jets, he himself and the general manager have a lot of decisions to make about this team. So from even the past week or so, I've seen and talked about at least 3 different scenarios with the Jets. You either could keep Darnold, draft an offensive lineman, and, maybe use a lot of the picks they have to build around Darnold with a new foundation. They could also use that number 2 pick on Justin Fields, who obviously after the Clemson game, I think he moved his draft stock up a little bit. Obviously, he didn't have the best national championship game. No one really believes he was fully healthy for that game either. That's another road the Jets could go down. But there's also that, maybe sneaky chance that they can trade for Deshaun Watson. I don't think Watson would agree on his part, but they have the pieces to trade for Watson. They have a lot of draft capital. They also have, they could also even stay with some of their draft capital and maybe move Sam Darnold to Houston. They have a lot of leverage with a lot of different teams right now. And, this guy has a great defensive mind. San Francisco's defense is just beyond talented. Even this year, with all the injuries, they were still very impressive. He should bring, most of that knowledge to the team. And depending on, they have a big decision to make. And obviously the decision they make on what quarterback they want to go forward with is going to, have a major effect on this guy's job.
Yeah, I think the Saleh pick honestly makes New York a bit more attractive for Deshaun. Sure, he's not an offensive coach, which is probably the most ideal place for Deshaun to go, but he is someone that I know Deshaun likes. And I'd say the Jets are probably the 3rd most likely team to land Deshaun, right behind Miami number 1, 49ers number 2.
Yeah.
I think the Jets are the 3rd pick.
The Jets have the 2nd pick, I believe. Oh, the 3rd best chance, yeah.
Oh, 3rd best chance. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is going to be interesting what they do. Like you said, that is a lot of decisions for a first-time head coach to make in his first offseason.
Exactly. Not even first year with the team, but first time ever as a head coach. That's obviously the New York media is not going to do him any favors. They're obviously always tough to play for. So that's definitely that's going to be an interesting offseason storyline to look at.
Right. I'm trying to think around. I don't quite remember do you remember who the Chargers ended up picking as a head coach?
He's the only one I forget. I know the Falcons landed with Arthur Smith.
Mm-hmm. Falcons are going into rebuild mode, much like the Lions, except I think the Lions need to blow it up.
The Falcons, yeah, we could probably see the Falcons this offseason without – maybe they might be able to get rid of both Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. I think they can get a lot of pieces back for both of those teams. Julio, obviously, he struggles to stay healthy, but when he's out there, he's one of the best in the league without a doubt. And I think
He'll
Matt
get you
Ryan,
99 yards down the field and still fail to get a touchdown.
yeah, that's just an aggravating team to watch, the Falcons. Matt Ryan's good too. I think this team has problems beyond what their roster is because obviously there's some talent on there. So maybe a new coach, kind of a new system in general, will maybe help them going forward. But I expect them to be a completely different team maybe in a year's come from now, especially with the changes they'll make.
Now, I don't quite remember the Chargers, but they ended up finding a new head coach.
They did. A lot of people are saying it's a good hire, definitely, especially for their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be – I mean, I thought that was one of the top spots they could go to just because how talented Herbert is.
And then the Eagles just yesterday found their new head coach, Nick Sirianni. I don't know much about this guy. Apparently, assistant offensive coordinator out of the Colts, right?
Yeah. So, most of the rumors were Carson Wentz was going to end up in Indianapolis with his old coach Frank Reich. I think this guy's learned a lot from Frank Reich. So maybe, that's the Eagles' way of saying they want to keep Wentz. Maybe help him learn with this guy. That's I was told that Josh McDaniels was about to sign with them. But then again, I'm not surprised that he didn't, or any teams, have a lot of trust in him after what he pulled with Indianapolis and kind of his one stunt as a head coach with Denver. It wasn't that impressive. It was, kind of taken over by the Tim Tebow story. But I actually think this is a very good hire because obviously I think there's a connection with Frank Reich. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's with the Eagles and Carson Wentz. But again, that quarterback situation is definitely going to be something to monitor in the offseason because, the Eagles had a different team spirit playing under Hurts. It's not the winning didn't actually, produce more, but you could tell there was a different feel with that. And when Doug Peterson pulled Hurts in the last game of the year, kind of hurt the whole team. So, there's I see the locker room definitely divided right now into who people want. There's a lot to figure out in Philadelphia right now, for sure. Hopefully he's the right guy to do it.
Absolutely. Like, I think we can't talk about head coaches without talking about Eric Bieniemy, right?
Yeah.
He is the head coaching candidate on the block. Still hasn't been picked as a head coach. Technically, there's still one more choice out there this season. But I think the Eagles were probably my number 2 pick for him. I really thought he was going to go to the Chargers, right? He's a former Chargers player. They're in the AFC West. They have that young quarterback, Justin Herbert. Like, that was the perfect situation for Bieniemy. The Eagles were my other pick because I saw them going down the Hurts lane. I thought it was Hurts all the way moving forward. Yeah. But this hire for the Eagles tells me 100% they want to fix things with Wentz.
Yeah, and not only do they want to fix things with Wentz, they kind of need to fix things with Wentz. They can't afford to, straight out cut him, or even trading him is going to be expensive. They made this commitment to him, especially after winning a Super Bowl. It's a strange time they signed him when Nick Foles just won the Super Bowl for them. So, Wentz himself had a horrible year, but he has definitely earned, a year to kind of maybe get his team back. I think he's earned that right. But at the same time, Hurts isn't going anywhere. So this.
And if you're Hurts, what do you do?
Yeah,
right? You rallied a team around you. You were Jalen Hurts was the talk of the NFL for 3 weeks because of what he was able to do with an Eagles team that hadn't done anything for Carson Wentz. What is your next step?
Yeah, it's something that goes beyond, just a conversation between you and the GM. You got to get, your top players' opinions. They're, my sense is Zach Ertz is going to leave. He's, I believe, a free agent. I think maybe they don't want to admit it right now, but I think they're going into a rebuild mode. They have a lot of pieces that they have to replace. They have a lot of old players who are injury prone and on the brink of retirement. So it's a bigger project than people really do realize. And by the end of next season, they may definitely be without Hurts or Wentz, one of them at least.
Right. And like I said, we can't have the full head coach situation conversation without talking about Bieniemy. Like I said, still not hired. So many teams that we thought 100% were going to be in on him don't go with him. What is keeping Bieniemy out of the head coach's office?
I'm thinking maybe Bieniemy himself is not, maybe he wasn't too high on some of the openings this year. And, he's a smart guy. A lot of people take the job because, maybe a lot of people take the job out of desperation and they don't really know what situation they're heading into. I think Bieniemy is obviously very comfortable where he is right now. They have a great thing going in Kansas City. So, I think he himself is smart enough to see and wait on an opportunity to get a spot that will really benefit him. I don't think he wants to head into a situation where, the future of the franchise is in question and, coaches will always be the ones that get blamed no matter what. He doesn't maybe want to take a hit on his resume or his legacy. I mean, I highly doubt that teams would pick over Bieniemy without, just without thinking about it. So I actually think he's a smart enough guy to, maybe he wasn't too high on most of these jobs as, some of us maybe have thought he was.
Yeah, like I said, I thought the Chargers one was the perfect one for him. But I mean, like you said, he has a good thing going in Kansas City, right? You have Patrick Mahomes. You've been to 3 consecutive AFC title games at home.
Yeah, it's definitely not something that you would just leave. It's definitely not a situation you would just leave without hesitation. So it is definitely surprising for him to not have a coaching job. But at the same time, I don't believe that. I believe some of that is his decision as well.
And like I said, there's still one more. Houston recently did a Zoom interview with him, despite initially not interviewing him.
I think that actually makes a lot of sense, and I think that maybe can be the one thing that keeps Watson in Houston. And we're still very early into an off season. We're not even done with the postseason. So I think there's time to maybe amend the relationships on the team. And they left him out of the GM. They kept him out of the GM discussion. So maybe Bieniemy is something that makes him change his mind, and maybe it gives Houston a better look.
I mean, from what we understand, Houston has a lot of ground to cover to try and get Watson back in the building.
Absolutely. I mean, and this high, bringing him in does maybe cover a lot of that ground.
But also at the same time, if you're Bieniemy, like you were saying, you're going to walk into the situation where there is nothing certain.
Yeah, what would cause him to make that decision to go to Houston? The only reason is Deshaun Watson. But if he sees how unhappy Deshaun Watson is, that maybe, at the same time causes him to stay away from it as well.
If I'm Bieniemy and I'm going to walk into Houston, I either need guaranteed that Watson is coming back, or I need to see the trade deal that is all but done with Miami to get Tua for Watson.
Yeah.
Right.
I would even if I'm Bieniemy, I don't know if going with either Tua or Sam Darnold from the Jets. I don't think either one of them right now is – I think they're both still great young quarterbacks, but I don't know if, we don't know how they're going to develop into, quarterbacks in their prime. And that might be something that Bieniemy sees as not worth leaving Kansas City for right now. So I think it's either Watson or bust for Bieniemy in Houston. And obviously that's going in the opposite direction.
Right. And I don't know how likely Bieniemy is to become a Hall of Famer as an offensive coordinator. But you got to think, Kansas City wins the Super Bowl this year. He's in the conversation as a Hall of Famer as an offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
There's his legacy is secure in Kansas City, so he doesn't have to leave. Sure, you pride is a thing. You want to prove to the world that you are the best and that you can do it. But why bother?
I know we see a lot of coaches come out of the Belichick tree, and besides Brian Flores and maybe Joe Judge, Joe Judge they had a positive season this year, but I think that's still kind of in question, that team. they're the only two out of the Belichick tree that have seemed to work so far as a head coach. Patricia thing was a disaster. We can say what we want about Bill O'Brien. I mean, he lasted, but were there any great memories of coaching moments, him in Houston? No. I just remember first round exits.
Mm-hmm.
Other people too. Like, you're not guaranteed to be an excellent head coach just because you're an amazing OC. I think Bieniemy is different from that. Obviously, we've seen that, but it's might not be something that's worth him leaving.
Right, and like there's going to be a ton of excuses. Like we will never know what happens behind closed doors, what happens in the head of Bieniemy, what happens in the interviews with Bieniemy. Like, and of course, social media is going to always swarm. He was the number one trend on Twitter yesterday, right? With people trying to figure out why Bieniemy hasn't been hired. Sometimes it's just as simple as he didn't want to.
Yeah, we don't know, and he's not going to talk. So.
Oh no, Bieniemy is definitely not one of those that would talk. Like there are a ton of head coaches like Urban Meyer or Dan Campbell who would never shut up about what happened. But like he's one of those. He will take that too. He will take that until he probably will never talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah. We just won't know. We just won't know right now.
But we're on the topic of Kansas City, so let's go into Championship Sunday, right, happening in a few days. So we have the first game of the day is going to be Green Bay and Tampa Bay battling up in Lambeau. Who do you got and why?
Yeah, this is a tight game. I actually predicted this game would be the NFC title game. I just trusted Brady over Breeze. Simple as that. They've looked night and day, the differences between those two. All season, basically. Even though the Saints crushed Tampa twice, I still thought Brady was a better quarterback. This is completely different, though. I think Green Bay has a much better offense, a much better quarterback situation right now. I don't think Tampa can match with them offensively, and we've just recently heard that Antonio Brown is not playing. That is a huge loss for Brady. I think they have enough talent on the offense to produce. In terms of the secondary, I think they're still an on and off inconsistent team. They looked very good last week, but I thought Breeze made some horrible decisions in some of the throws he made that most secondaries could take advantage of. The week before versus Washington, they looked very mediocre against Heineke. He moved the ball pretty well on them. I think Rodgers and Devontae Adams are on a mission this season. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I like the over in this game. I see something around 37-30 Green Bay. I think this is a legendary game, and if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I have way more to prove than Tom Brady does, obviously. Tom Brady's won 6 championships,
I think just getting to the NFC title game proved everything Tom Brady needed to prove.
Exactly. Belichick, and we looked at how the Patriots struggled this season. Kind of just Brady making the playoffs, and you saw what happened in New England. Just that was kind of, advantage Brady to begin with. So he's kind of overachieving at this point. Obviously, they didn't have an off-season or preseason together. So he's walked, even though there's a lot of talent there, it's not like a basketball team. Like, you're going to have to learn and get used to who you're playing with. So I think Brady's definitely overachieved, and maybe another Super Bowl is on the horizon for Brady with this Tampa team. It might not be this year. I think Rodgers getting that home field, like I said a couple weeks ago, is very important. So I like Green Bay in this game, high-scoring game, but I think Green Bay has the better team, and I think they're on the better track to the Super Bowl right now.
Like you said, Lambeau in January is just unrealistically advantageous to Green Bay. Like, sure, Tom Brady played in New England where they got some very similar weather conditions, especially in January.
Absolutely.
But last I saw, we're expecting snow on Sunday. It's supposed to be below freezing. This is a good weather team coming into Lambeau, right? Like,
yeah,
sure, this is Tom Brady's first year as a fair weather quarterback, but he's old.
He's old. Yeah, he is old, but I'm not too worried about Brady, honestly, because I think he's been in this position before, like you said, in New England. I'm more worried about what's around him. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they haven't played in games like these before, and especially under the circumstances in that weather in January. They're not used to postseason. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of that team besides Brady reacts. Like I said, though, I think they've overachieved at this point. I don't think there's a huge knock on Brady if he loses. I think Rodgers wants that second Super Bowl, and he's probably has the best opportunity this year to get it, considering, the year he's had and the home field he's gotten himself. So I do think Green Bay is favored to win that game.
Absolutely. And who are they meeting, right? Later that night, we get Kansas City Chiefs, who will have Patrick Mahomes. 100% now will have Patrick Mahomes playing versus the Buffalo Bills. Who do you have and why?
Yeah. See, I knew from Monday morning that Mahomes would be in this game. I know this was a situation that the media was gonna love, just from his daily practice updates and whatnot. If you watched Baltimore last week, Buffalo was not that impressive to me whatsoever. I mean, they did a good job on defense shutting down Lamar Jackson, but at the same time, their offense, I thought Josh Allen looked off. Josh Allen's going to have to play one of the best games of his career to win this game. And Mahomes being healthy and whatnot, I think if you look at last week's game, that was about to get ugly before he got hurt. It really wasn't as close as it looked, obviously. I don't think the Chiefs have much struggle at all this game. I think, like I said, I think Baltimore would have been a tougher matchup for Kansas City had they had beat Buffalo. But I don't think Buffalo has the offensive consistency to match with Kansas City in a game like this, especially with the experience now carrying over to the third straight AFC game for Kansas City.
Yeah, a lot is going to be said about Patrick Mahomes playing, but one thing I know about Patrick Mahomes is he's competitive as hell.
Absolutely.
Right? Being taken out of the Browns game is going to put something on his shoulders, right? He's going to want to say something like, and to think, you also know he has heard everything everyone has said this weekend. He's a nice guy, right? He always puts on this nice guy face, but when it slips, it slips, and you see he is a vengeful, competitive prick.
Yeah.
And I think he takes it out on Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. This game really shouldn't be close. I think Buffalo, again, is a team that has overachieved. I think I like a lot of what Josh Allen's been doing, but I think he's a little ahead of himself right now in terms of production. Kansas City's just a better team overall. I don't think this should be as close as the first game we're going to see that day. And I honestly think if Kansas City is just 80 to 85% of themselves, they really shouldn't have a big struggle in this game.
Right. I think, and like you kept saying, I think you said Buffalo is overachieved.
Yeah.
I had to provide a quote earlier today for someone. My quote was, I don't think Buffalo is as good as the media has said they are. Right.
Yeah.
They put up 10 points on the Ravens, who have let some teams score on them.
Yeah,
right.
They're not a perfect team whatsoever. Don't get me wrong; they've made tremendous improvements this year as an offense. Stephon Diggs has been huge for Josh Allen's development. Same with Cole Beasley. But like I said, I think they're a team that can control the AFC East for a long time. Considering the downfall of what New England's doing and the rebuild Jets are in, and Miami, they have Tua, but they might not completely be comfortable with their quarterback situation yet. And they still have, a good amount of draft picks. Buffalo's definitely going to have a good future ahead of them. I just don't think it's this Sunday.
Right. Like they barely beat Indianapolis with Phillip Rivers purposely trying to throw that game.
Yeah.
Right. The now retired Phillip Rivers.
Yeah. They haven't looked impressive either game to be, if we're being really honest. I think their defense definitely surprised a lot of people, but I don't think this is a blowout. I don't think this is going to be like the first time the Chiefs play them, where they just run them off the field. But going into the fourth quarter, I can see the Chiefs pulling away with this.
Absolutely. No, yeah, I totally agree. And that sets up a Green Bay Kansas City Super Bowl, which, let's be honest, is the one everyone wants to see.
Yeah.
It's the one everyone wanted to see last season. It's the one we all wanted to see at the beginning of this season. It's the one we want to see.
Yep, that's been my pick, probably since week 13, 14. I think These are the two best quarterbacks in football right now, to me. Uh, Obviously, the NFL, the ratings would be off the roof, and I think we would see a high-scoring battle. Despite, how impressive these two defenses have been, I think both quarterbacks would light it up that game. It's definitely a game I want to watch.
Absolutely. And we're talking about it, it's crazy the parallels between these two. Aaron Rodgers has been playing a whole lot longer. He still only has one Super Bowl to his name.
Yeah.
Right. And Patrick Mahomes has been playing 2 years as a starter. This is his third year as a starter, and he already has one to his name.
If we're really looking at an honest narrative of this, all the pressure is on Rodgers to win the Super Bowl this year.
All of the pressure
more than
is
anyone.
on Rodgers. If you don't win the Super Bowl this year, I don't want to be Rodgers.
Yeah, no, you got to.
But I do want to mention before we move on, Sunday was probably Drew Brees' last game.
Yeah.
He said before the game, it was his last season. He walked it back a little bit after the game, but it felt like Drew Brees' last game.
It did.
As a quarterback.
I'm not surprised. I mean, he's a legend. I remember just watching him growing up my whole life. I mean, he obviously only has that one ring, but I looked at him always as a great leader my whole life. I watched him play. He's a real positive guy. All his teammates only have good things to say about him, and he's obviously has a good relationship with Peyton. They work together. I think he's done a lot for that city, New Orleans. They've been through a lot. So, he's a Hall of Famer in my book. But it definitely does. It sucks that he has to go out that way, but it's definitely what's best for his health. He doesn't have a lot more to prove.
No, you saw in the second half of the season, especially after those injured ribs, you saw he was done.
Absolutely.
Which is weird to watch him say that at his age, and then watch Tom Brady at even older still do Tom Brady things.
Yeah, he's just no one's gonna do what. No one's resume is gonna ever look like Brady's. It's you would think it's a video game, his resume. Mm-hmm. I think he got it in playing Madden, but he's ridiculous. So it's really unfair to compare any of these older quarterbacks to him because it's just a step up from he's just a step up from everyone.
And to think a Super Bowl win might give Brady the nice exit he wants, but there's no way Brady's done this season, right?
No. I think his deal is a 2-year deal, so he's definitely back at least next year.
That's insane.
Yeah, but it is.
But let's switch gears, right? So that's pretty much everything we got in the NFL right now. Let's switch gears to the NBA, right? Where earlier this week we saw for the first time the Nets' new trio, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and the now acquired James Harden, get their butts kicked by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes. I think we all said this before in the show, but they're going to be a team that puts up insane offensive numbers. But like you said, the Cavs were the worst offensive rated team in the whole league, and they put up 150 points on them. So imagine, them against the top teams. I know Harden and KD got an impressive win over the Bucks the game before Kyrie came back, but most of their games are going to look like that. They're going to have to do a lot just to keep float. I'm not doubting them. I think they're a team that can win the East, but at the same time, they're going to have to make a lot of adjustments defensively. And at the same time, they're all going to have to be on the same page. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously one crazy game, but like you said, all of their games are going to be talked about just because it's probably going to have a crazy result like we saw the other night.
And you got to like they're definitely probably the worst team on defense now. Even their depth players aren't great on defense.
Yeah, they're all they really. I don't think they're going to realize until a couple months from now how much they actually gave up to get Harden, because a big majority of their team is not there anymore. Some would argue, their flow was perfect before even Harden left. They were decent even when KD was just running it, when Kyrie left. So a lot of changes are going to happen.
But yeah, Karis LeVert for them before this trade was playing lights out. Yes, would address the elephant in the room. this trade probably saved Karis LeVert's life, right? He gets traded to Houston. Houston trades him to Philly. Philly, in their physical, finds a lump on his, I want to say, kidney, right? This trade saved Karis LeVert's life. Without it, he continues to play. It gets worse, and we're probably talking about a tragedy here in the next few months.
Yeah.
But like Karis LeVert was doing really well for them, and their depth players that they traded away to Houston were also doing fairly well. Now, yes, they have that insane trio up front, but they have no depth, and then they also have no defense.
Yeah, like I said, obviously they're not going to lack attention. That's the one thing that team is not going to lack. I mean, like we both said, they're going to be looked at every single game to see how they react, but yeah, their defense is gone. Their depth and their defense is gone. And obviously, they're a super team from the talent they have, but all of these other crazy teams we've seen in the past has had some bench depth. It's going to be really interesting to see just the stamina of these three players, how long they last.
I think the Lakers are probably the most recent team that had, like, they lacked a lot of bench depth last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But like, it's LeBron James, who will play 48 minutes in the game if you ask him to,
Exactly.
and Anthony Davis. Like,
exactly. And now we saw what they did in the offseason. They got deeper. They got Schroeder. They got Harrell. So now, they don't have to carry as big a load, even though they will come postseason time. But if I'm Brooklyn, I'm looking to add maybe some pieces, but they're not working with a lot, right? They don't have a lot to work with right now, so they might just have to go with what they have, and that's the choice they made. So it's tough to have sympathy for the situation they're in, honestly.
Yeah, it's hard to have sympathy for the team that currently boasts James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant.
Yeah, expect them to figure something out.
Right, like I don't like. Yeah, the Bucks could give them a hard time, but the Bucks are struggling this season.
Yeah, man. They've given me zero reason to think that they can go to the next step, because I've just seen disappointments year after year with them until they prove me wrong. It's not really fair to choose them to win again.
But I mean, we're talking about a ton of teams. No one is competing with the Lakers right now, right?
Yeah.
The Lakers yesterday played the Bucks. Sure, they didn't blow them out, but they controlled Giannis, which is not something any other team gets to say.
Yeah, the score, I think, was a lot closer than the game was. Lakers were in control for pretty much that whole game, and I think LeBron showed up. He had a season high at 34. He knew it was kind of an important game. Giannis, great player, great athlete, but he's going to have to learn to add, more concepts to his game besides driving to the paint, because obviously we saw the Lakers last night. Maybe other teams in the future, they'll have something to shut that down. So Giannis kind of has to learn to be a little bit more than one dimension, but they have the talent. They definitely have the talent. Adding Drew Holiday is huge, and Middleton is having a career year. So, they have the talent to do it. It's just the execution that's in question.
It's so weird to me to talk about the Bucks and to be like, oh, Middleton's having a good year. Holiday, he's doing pretty well. Giannis is probably the problem right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's, we've seen him get, his numbers get better for the most part, but yeah, I mean, his act sometimes gets old when he can't hit a jumper and he can't hit free throws. Teams are going to know that. They're going to look to foul him. He might be getting the Shaq effect this early in his career, but he's going to have to learn, to get out of that and to develop, a jumper, a three-pointer, something, because he's dominant enough of a player to, he's going to get his 20 and 15 every night, but he's going to have to elevate his game in order to elevate his team as well.
Right. But so for the most part right now, I think, like I said, the Lakers aren't being touched by anybody, right? I take them in 4. I'm taking them in 4 over pretty much any team in the West right now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to get cocky, but yeah, I mean,
you're a Lakers fan, so
I love it. It's LeBron. LeBron's my guy. LeBron's my guy. He's gonna. I've seen him get. I just kind of look at him like I look at Brady, man. Like they're doubted year after year, but it's just not smart to pick against them. They
And
have
it's weird.
too long a track record too.
It's weird because normally LeBron starts seasons really slow and
He
then
does.
warms up as he gets closer to the playoffs.
And
If this is slow for LeBron, I don't want to see what playoff LeBron is like.
and we're coming off such a short off season. He just turned 36 last month. I don't know. I don't understand how he's a human being. Like, I think I'm still convinced he's like a machine. But yeah, as long as he's doing what he's doing right now, there's nothing really any other team can do about it.
Right. The only other team that could stop the Lakers
Yeah, is Brooklyn.
is missing their piece, and that's the Warriors.
Oh, you think? Yeah, yeah. I thought, maybe Brooklyn, but I don't think they're going to be able to compete with the Lakers defensively. Lakers are the best defensive team in basketball, and that's the worst. That obviously doesn't match up too well. But yeah, Golden. It really is a shame that Clay is not out there because I would have loved to see a Lakers Warriors series. It's been a while since LeBron has had a playoff series with the Warriors. Since he left the East, obviously. But yeah, it really is a shame that they're out. But they got a big win over the Lakers the other night. Like we said, Curry is keeping this team in the conversation. They got blown out by the Knicks last night too. So I don't know how you beat the Lakers and lose to the Knicks in the same week. That doesn't really make sense. But Curry's great enough to keep them in the postseason position. But with Clay, obviously they're probably challenging. They're probably the number one contender to the Lakers right now. So as of right now, I think that's still the Clippers, just from the star power they have. I don't necessarily trust them in a playoff situation or disciplined situation. To once they blow a lead, I don't trust them to come back. But Clay is the huge piece missing for the Warriors.
Yeah, you mentioned discipline. Draymond got kicked out of last night's game with the Knicks. I mean, mind you, he got kicked out of the game for yelling at one of his fellow teammates.
Yeah,
but
Draymond's built up such a reputation in the past with these referees that he's gonna get no favors from them. It's the same thing with Boogie Cousins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but no, James Wiseman's doing really well for him, right? Like he's got a few things to fix, but when he as he starts to get more disciplined, get into the rhythm of NBA basketball versus college basketball, I think he's a legit star in the making.
Absolutely. That was a steal for them. It really was. I mean, I think I said this last week, but the Warriors have a very smart front office. They know what they're doing for the most part. James Wiseman was definitely the right pick for them, and he's not going anywhere. We might see them get rid of Oubre or Wiggins once Clay comes back into the picture next season, but he is absolutely a piece that they're going to keep around for a very long time.
Yeah, so we talked about Wiseman, which is, we're going to go down the rookie lane here. LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. Dude's balling out.
Yeah, he's definitely the favorite right now. In most categories, I thought I saw a graph from maybe a week or two ago about him being first in 4 out of the 5 major rookie categories. He obviously has good enough players around him in Charlotte to help him develop. I think playing, with scorers like Gordon Hayward and Graham, people like them, I think he's going to gain a lot of experience. Him, I think playing in the pros before the draft, over in Lithuania, I think that helped his maturity out a lot. We obviously see it, and he definitely has a higher ceiling than Lonzo. What it looks like as of right now, anyways. As long as he keeps, developing like he does, it's going to be tough for him to be beat out in the MVP race. Rookie of the Year race.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the other, so I want to say before the season started, Wiseman was probably the number one, most favorite to win.
Yeah,
and then LaMelo was somewhere around 2 or 3. The other guy that's in there in that top 3 was Edwards out of Minnesota. What's he doing?
Yeah.
Can you tell me?
So that team is just obviously that whole team in general is struggling right now. I know they had a little COVID issue early on in the season, but I think he hasn't gone into the groove of things yet. I think they kind of took him because they didn't really need the position of what Wiseman was, obviously, because they have Cat and whatnot. But they're gonna have to, if they drafted him without having a plan for him, how to develop him and stuff like that. That's not really fair to the player himself. Obviously, the organizations these players get drafted to will have big impacts on their careers, obviously. if you're learning, one's on Golden State and one's on Minnesota, that is obviously two opposite ends of, the spectrum in terms of, smart veteran players. And then, players who are closer to your age that are trying to do the same thing as you, which is develop. So I think it's a weird season to begin with, but I think he deserves a little time. Maybe check back on him at the end of the season, see how he's doing, and maybe, what the T-Wolves want to do with him moving forward. But he's a special talent, so I don't see that in, the near future. They're probably going to want to figure out what to do with him.
I think the problem for Edwards is exactly what you're saying. It's where he got drafted to.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Minnesota is the most irrelevant team in the league. Like, no one wants to say it. Like, I'll say the quiet part out loud. Minnesota is probably the 30th team in the league when it comes to, like, teams people care about, right? Like, I think there are more Detroit Piston fans out there than there are Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, that's safe to say.
Right. Like, currently the NBA is talking about adding some expansion teams, right, which will be great for the league. I think those two teams will probably be more memorable and more looked to than the Minnesota Timberwolves are right now.
Yeah, Cats a special talent, and they have KG, but other than that, they're not staying relevant, like you said, and people aren't going to talk about this Wiseman kid like he was talked about in college. So it's interesting.
I think that is all we have time for today. We're going to get some closing statements in. Donovan, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah. So you guys can find my Twitter at Dunnykaz, DUNNYKAZ 97. I'm on here weekly, BR Live, and I'm also a new podcast coming up in the next month or so. So I'll keep you guys posted on that.
Absolutely. And of course, you can find me, like we talked about, we're at borderfieldsports.com. You can read all my writings and all of Donovan's writings there. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Byron Smith, spelled out right above my head, preferably. And again, you can find us right here every week at BF Live. Christopher wasn't able to hit us this week, but he did send us that video, so nice for him. And we will be here next week with early Super Bowl previews, but mostly looking at NBA stuff next week. And thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you then.
See you guys.